Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Believe it or not, this is episode 5 of our T34 series. Of course, we've been working on the base for the last episode. We made a ton of little bricks and broke up some plaster to make a lot of rubble, built a brick building, and we worked on the base, making some cobblestones, laying in some little tram trolley tracks, and even built the beginnings of a tank trap roadblock here on one corner that our little car is going to sit into. So let's just pick up where we left off from the last episode. We're going to need to be working with a lot of rubble. That's been kind of the theme that I've been throwing around through the entire series, that just that overwhelming sense of chaos and destruction that the streets of Berlin had here at the end of the war. So we'll be adding a lot of those little bricks, a lot of that plaster, and then even some paint. First things first, we have to get there. So let's start with the building at the rear of the little scene here. So that little footprint actually comes in fairly handy, and it's going to come in handy for two reasons, and the second one will become apparent a little bit later. But first I need to build up some bulk, basically just some height and give it some mass here for the debris to kind of sit on. So I'm using some extra of the pink foam, just getting some volume in there, and then I'm turning right back to kind of tried and true favorite, which is just a little bit of plaster. And again, I just use this because it's easy to use, it's quick, it's inexpensive, and it dries rock hard. And then once again, the theme is adding all sorts of layers of debris and rubble. So even at this early stage here, I want to go ahead and add a layer of texture. So a little bit of white PVA glue over the surface, sprinkle it with a little bit of railroad ballast, just tap that in, make sure it kind of sits in secure. And then we'll keep moving on forward here and adding more and more layers of this debris and rubble. Yeah, I know if you've watched some of these videos, I'm kind of not great at thinking ahead and planning things out exactly. But thinking ahead on this one, I'm pretty sure, I think I'm going to have some trouble if I try to keep everything together as one piece on this diorama. It's just going to make painting really difficult because this is a large diorama and it's just going to be very awkward to try to get around. So what I've decided to do is to make two components to this scene. So one component will be the building, and the other component will be the base. So with the building, I've got some of that rubble attached to it already. We did it a little bit earlier. And I've covered it with some tinfoil, and that's just for a non-stick. Then over the top of that, I've added another little shelf or a little layer of plaster, and that's attached to the base. And now I have this little cove, or this little slide-in area, where I can put the building back in, and hopefully over time, these will be able to seamlessly match back together after I've got a lot of the painting done. Well, anyway, that's the plan, so we'll see how this works out. Well, before I start covering everything up with a layer of rubble, I do want to take care of the very base layer, and that being the street here. Using the spackling paste, once again, I'm just spreading that over the tops of the cobblestones, and that just makes them look like they're all set in place and gives it just a little bit more unified, and I think a little more authentic looking texture. And of course, this is exactly the same process as was done on the building facade over those little cork bricks. Okay, well, here we go. I don't know, what do we call this? The construction of destruction? Basically, I'm going to start adding layer upon layer of rubble and debris onto this scene. I've made some small wall sections of brick here, and that again is just the foam core, same foam core as the building was constructed from, and same little brick pattern with the spackling. I'm just going to add a few of those here at the very beginning just to kind of give a sense of accomplishment that I'm actually getting somewhere. And then a few broken boards here and there, and those are just made from pieces of styrene that I've etched a little bit of wood grain on and broken up a little bit. You could use real wood if you wanted to in this instance. You know, if you got creative, you could throw a toilet in there, you could throw pictures into here, you can put all sorts of household items into this debris. And actually, it's not a bad idea. I don't do it, but that's not a bad idea. Make it much more, I guess, authentic. And then for these little bricks, and there's going to be a ton of these, and these are all placed basically brick by brick. Again, we'll go back to Pink Floyd, a lot of bricks in the broken wall here. But over time, this starts to accumulate and layer upon layer, and that's what I'm looking for here is I don't want a representation of debris and rubble. I want to try to create as best as I can the real sense of overwhelming rubble and debris and that chaos that I've talked about and shown in some of those reference photographs. I guess if there's another theme for this diorama base other than just the rubble, it is, yes, everything in this construction is taking a lot of time between cutting all those little bricks, carving the cobblestones, and now adding all those rubble basically brick by brick. But I think it's worthwhile. And after a bit of time, we got something that's starting to look pretty authentic here. And now you can see that shelf on the back, the little slot where the base of the building will just slide into, just like this. And let's hopefully it all still fits. Obviously, the plaster on the front is still curing. It's still wet, so it's moving around a little bit. But I want to set the building in here right now. They won't stick together because they're dry enough, but I want to put that in there right now to make sure the shape holds. And then here we go, a little bit of a beauty shot, and that's starting to look okay. The T34 will be in the front on the street, and the car to the right side. The building can be removed, and we're getting ready for paint. Before the painting begins, I'd just like to remind you that if you do like this channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. It does help so much to get this channel to more and more viewers. I do appreciate your support. For those of you folks who want a little bit more content and support the channel even further, I do have a Patreon page, and I'll put the link for that below in the description. Some of the benefits over there: photographs of these projects as they're ongoing, a look into the future projects. We had a nice conversation about a very fun project that's coming up in maybe 2 projects from now. There is a Discord server where we have a pretty robust chat that's going on as well. Longer form videos on certain techniques from time to time, and of course, early viewing of these videos before they're posted to the public. And so I'd invite you to check that out, and please consider joining. Okay, let's get on to the painting. I've mentioned this before, but I do like to treat my bases basically the same as I treat my models, and that includes a layer of primer, and that really helps unify the surfaces. Keep in mind, like this one has cork and plaster and styrene and putty and all sorts of different things, and that will just help unify the surface so the paint adheres well and basically has the same consistency throughout too, so it doesn't like soak into one area more than the other area or something like that. After the coat of primer, I want to make sure that everything is nice and saturated with black because I don't want any of that white or the gray showing through. Really deepens those shadows as well. And then we'll start working with the base colors. And I've chosen for this, rather than maybe say like the red brick color that you might see often, a lot of the buildings in that area seem to have a lot of this brown, or I don't know what it would be, sandstone clay type rubble as well. So I kind of wanted to go with that color palette, more of a sandy tone. And that was the quick part. And so once I have my colors all airbrushed on, I've got my basic colors laid down on the base here, then it's back to, let's see, painting one brick at a time and one small rock at a time and every little individual board and piece of grain and gravel. Now, I'm exaggerating. I didn't paint everything, but I paint a lot of this, and sometimes 2 or 3 coats of paint just to start brightening up and showing a few highlights here and there as well. I don't think there's any shortcut for this part of the process. No use being in a hurry here. Just sit down, relax, and enjoy the painting. Now on to some other details. Hopefully you remember those wooden posts that I made from the plastic tube that I covered with the Magic Sculpt, and then I pressed the bark texture or the wooden texture using real pieces of wood and sticks and bark chips and things like that. Well, now it's time to paint those up and start making those look like, well, wooden posts. And this is one of those happy accident times where, given the whole overspray of the dark black and then those tan colors, has already provided these logs with a pretty good start as to their color. And so I just need to come back and add a few details here and there, a few washes just to kind of bring out some of the little bit more newer wood tones, and just some little bit of detail painting here and there, especially on the bark, just to kind of bring out some of those textures. And then I gave everything just a quick wash with light oil colored paint just to kind of bring out some of those little pinkish tones. Over some of the groundwork, I just add real thin washes. This is acrylic paint, the same colors I used in painting the debris and even the building itself. And this just helps tie everything together. And these washes, the way that they kind of accumulate and dry, also help with that effect of nice dust and dirt spread across the street from, say, the debris and the fallen building and everything. And I'll keep adding to that and making sure everything looks nice and appropriately destroyed and grimy. So after a bit of work, it's starting to come together, I think. I like those little pops of color of the orange, the brick color against the brown. I think that looks really nice. I'm pleased with the way that looks. But this is only half the scene, and of course we still have a building, and by contrast, yeah, that's still pretty unfinished, so we'll have to do, well, it's unfinished at all, so I'll have to do some work there. But I just can't help myself because I just want to do one little sneak peek test fit here, see if that car Hopefully still fits in the place that it was supposed to here. Let's see if that wiggles in. It's getting tighter and tighter because I keep adding just a little bit more around the edges. And I'll clean this up and really tighten it up when it's in its final place. But yep, now you can see the car in the context with the brick colors, and I think that's going to play very well. Okay, let's get started on that building. And well, first things first, let's add just a little bit of battle damage. I don't want to go over the top here, but just with the tip of my X-Acto blade, I can just make some little piercings, little bullet holes, little shell holes here and there. And it's super easy to do because you're either into foam core, which is super soft, or you're into the little bit of cork bricks, and those chip away nice and easy as well. Then it's back to painting. Now this building really isn't as far away from completion as it kind of first looks, because it has its base colors on there and it has the shadowing and things, especially around the windows. Now I just need to come back in and do some of the detail painting. Once again, the palette is going to be that sand and brownish tone that I decided to do at the very beginning of the project for no real apparent reason. And now it's just, these are thinned acrylics, so I've got them about 50-50 with water, and I'm just kind of highlighting some of the bricks, just changing some of the tones of some of these bricks. I don't want it to be real checkerboardy. I just want to bring a little bit of personality and individuality and interest to the facade of this building. Well, I'm getting to that point on the building where I think I've got it far enough along here where I can go ahead and slide it into its little shelf area there and attach it permanently and finish up all the detail work as it is positioned on the base. I've got to say that little shelf idea was worked out really well. You can see the rubble just kind of rises right up there and looks integrated within the building. And I'll come back and fix some of those scenes. The little car is nestled into its little place. I'll have to position that permanently in just next few steps. And I've got extra rubble here, of course, which I'll take care of all those little seams and tuck it in all these different little empty spaces. But I think it's starting to look pretty okay. It's getting there very quickly now. Well, speaking of things that are looking pretty nice, I'd certainly recommend Small Soldier Adventures in Miniature. It's run by my friend Scott, and his YouTube channel is full of wonderful projects. The HMS Hood is one of my favorites. He's working on a Kettengrad project right now. Certainly give him a look. I'll put the link to his page in the description below. And with that, we're going to be pretty much completed with this episode. Call it a wrap. If you haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe button. It does help so much. And again, I do have a Patreon page if you'd like a little bit more content. The description for that, the link for that is below in the description. Next episode, we'll paint the figure for this little scene. We'll do some finishing touches on the base, and we'll get everything tidied up. We'll add the tank onto the scene itself, the driver or the commander or whoever he is, the figure into the tank, and we'll call it a wrap. So until next time, keep safe, take care guys, and happy modeling. See you in the next episode.